My next guest ran for president in the Democratic primary in 2020. Then he ran for New York City mayor in 2021, where he was the front runner for much of that race. And then he decided to leave the Democratic Party, and here he is explaining that decision.
Why leave the Democratic Party? I mean, you ran for president and mayor as a Democrat.
I've been a Democrat for 26 years, Anderson. Polarization is at record high levels in the United States. Political stress is approaching civil war levels. And the question is, how can we bring the temperature of the country down? As one of the major pitfalls potentially for a mayor like Mamdani was getting crosswise with this administration, having resources pulled, having ICE officials down, downtown and other parts of the city. And so the fact that Zoran and Donald Trump seem to be on the same page, so many New Yorkers today are breathing a huge sigh of relief. I hope it holds up.
Okay, you're not going to believe what just happened. President Trump just blindsided everyone, and I mean everyone, with a weekend announcement that has the entire political world scratching their heads. Trump hosted New York City's progressive mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani at the White House. Yeah, you heard that right. The same Zoran Mamdani that Trump once called his worst nightmare. The progressive Democrat who ran on affordability, housing reform, and policies that conservatives have been attacking for months. And Trump didn't just meet with him privately. He held a full joint press conference in the Oval Office, on camera, in front of all the major networks, and praised him. Actually praised a progressive Democrat and promised to work together on housing and public safety. This isn't spin. This isn't rumor. This actually happened, and nobody saw it coming. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
It's more certain than ever, unfortunately, Kaylee. And you can see right now, big companies are scaling back, hiring recent college graduates. You have entire customer service departments being replaced by AI. It's starting to show up in the numbers, and unfortunately, that's going to speed up in the coming months. I wish I was wrong back in 2019, but I fear I was right.
Let me tell you why this is so stunning. Trump's entire political brand for the last decade has been built on fighting progressives, on attacking Democrats as socialists who want to destroy America, on drawing clear battle lines between his vision and theirs. He's spent months feuding with Democrats over everything from the Epstein files to government shutdowns to investigations. And then suddenly, on a Friday afternoon when most of Washington is winding down for the weekend, Trump announces he's hosting Mamdani and they're going to work together. No warning to his allies, no heads up to Republican leaders, just boom. Here's a progressive mayor-elect in the Oval Office, and we're best friends now. The whiplash is giving everyone political vertigo. The press conference itself was surreal. Trump stood there next to Mamdani and said things like, "We have a shared interest and there are no party differences, and I want to commend the mayor for an incredible campaign." Those are not phrases Trump typically uses about Democrats, especially not progressive Democrats, especially not Democrats who represent everything his base claims to hate about urban liberal politics. But there he was, smiling, shaking hands, promising unprecedented federal-local cooperation on housing and cost of living issues. And Mamdani was there talking about how productive the meeting was and how they found common ground on affordability and public safety. It looked like a scene from an alternate universe where Trump suddenly discovered bipartisanship. And get this, when reporters asked Trump about his past comments calling Mamdani his worst nightmare, Trump just brushed it off. He said it's easier than explaining it, and I don't mind. Like it was no big deal that he completely reversed his position on this guy overnight. That's classic Trump in some ways. He never feels the need to explain contradictions or justify reversals. But it's also stunning because it shows how little he cares about consistency or what his allies think. He just decides to do something and does it regardless of how it looks or who it confuses. The GOP reaction has been a mix of confusion, frustration, and barely concealed anger. Conservative activists are openly questioning what Trump is doing. Longtime loyalists are trying to figure out if this is some kind of strategic move or if Trump just went rogue. Hardliners who have been attacking progressive policies for months are now watching their leader embrace a progressive mayor and promise to help implement those exact policies. Nobody knows what to make of it. Is this Trump pivoting to the center for 2026? Is this him trying to distract from recent scandals? Is this some kind of weird political calculation that only makes sense in Trump's head? Nobody has good answers because nobody was consulted before this happened. The timing makes it even more bizarre. This comes just days after Trump was feuding with Democrats over the Epstein files, after tensions with his own party over various investigations and legal battles, after weeks of traditional partisan combat where Trump was doing what Trump does, attacking opponents and rallying his base. And then suddenly he's in the Oval Office praising a progressive Democrat and talking about working together. It's such a jarring shift that people are wondering if something changed behind the scenes. Did Trump get polling showing he needs to soften his image? Did someone convince him that bipartisan cooperation looks good heading into midterms? Or did he just wake up Friday morning and decide to do something completely unexpected because he was bored with the usual playbook? What makes this particularly significant is who Mamdani is and what he represents. He's a democratic socialist. He ran on a platform of affordable housing, rent control, and aggressive government intervention in markets to help working families. These are policies that Republicans have spent years attacking as radical and destructive. And now Trump is standing next to the guy who won on that platform and promising federal support. That's not a minor shift. That's Trump embracing policies and politicians that his entire coalition has been fighting against. The cognitive dissonance is breaking people's brains. Let's break down what actually happened and what it might mean. All right, let's dig into the details because the story is even stranger when you understand the full context. First, who is Zohran Mamdani and why is Trump meeting with him such a shock? Mamdani is a democratic socialist who just won the race to become New York City's mayor. He's a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He's been a vocal critic of corporate power and wealth inequality. He ran on a platform that included aggressive rent control, massive investments in affordable housing, and policies aimed at reducing the cost of living for working families. This is not a moderate Democrat. This is someone from the progressive left wing of the party. And traditionally, Trump has used people like Mamdani as foils, examples of the radical left that he needs to defeat. In fact, Trump specifically called Mamdani his worst nightmare during the campaign. Now, that's not an exaggeration or paraphrase. Trump literally referred to Mamdani as his worst nightmare because Mamdani represents everything Trump claims to oppose. So, for Trump to then invite him to the White House, hold a joint press conference, and promise cooperation, that's a complete 180-degree reversal. It's like if someone spent months saying their worst enemy was coming to destroy everything they care about, and then suddenly invited that enemy over for dinner and offered to help them succeed. The meeting itself happened on Friday afternoon. Apparently, it was arranged quickly without much advance notice. Trump's own team wasn't fully briefed on what was going to happen. Republican congressional leaders weren't given a heads up. Conservative media allies weren't prepared with talking points. It was just Trump deciding to do this and making it happen. And when the press conference started, it became clear this wasn't going to be a typical contentious meeting where Trump and a Democrat spar publicly. This was Trump in full charm mode, praising Mamdani's campaign and talking about shared goals. Trump's specific words are worth examining because they're so out of character. He said we have a shared interest in making New York safe and affordable. He talked about how both of them care about bringing down costs for families. He praised Mamdani's campaign as incredible. And then he said the line that's getting the most attention: there are no party differences when it comes to helping the American people. That last line is particularly stunning because Trump has spent his entire political career emphasizing party differences. His whole appeal has been about Republicans versus Democrats, us versus them, patriots versus the radical left. And now suddenly there are no party differences. It's such a stark departure from his usual rhetoric that people don't know what to make of it. Mamdani's response was interesting too. He played it pretty straight, talked about how the meeting was productive, focused on policy areas where they discussed cooperation, affordable housing, reducing grocery prices, improving public safety. He didn't make a big deal about the fact that Trump had previously called him a nightmare. He didn't gloat or act like this was some kind of victory over Trump. He just treated it like a normal meeting between federal and local officials who need to work together, which made the whole thing feel even more surreal because it was being presented as normal when nothing about it was normal. The policy substance they discussed is actually significant. Trump has been trying to position himself as caring about cost of living issues. He's been talking about bringing down prices, making housing more affordable, and helping working families. These are popular issues across the political spectrum. But Trump's typical approach has been to blame Democrats for high prices and propose Republican solutions. What he didn't do until now was embrace Democratic politicians who are actually running on those issues and offer to work with them. That's a tactical shift. Instead of fighting with Mamdani over who has better solutions, Trump is trying to associate himself with Mamdani's success and claim credit for any improvements that happen in New York. The political calculation behind this move is fascinating to think about. One theory is that Trump is trying to broaden his appeal heading into 2026 midterms. By showing he can work with Democrats on popular issues like housing and affordability, he looks less partisan and more presidential. That might help with independent voters and moderate Democrats who are open to supporting Trump but worry he's too divisive. Another theory is that Trump is trying to split Democrats by embracing their more popular politicians and policies while still attacking the party overall. If he can get credit for working with Mamdani on affordability, that makes it harder for Democrats to attack him as uncaring about working families. A third theory is that Trump is trying to distract from recent scandals and negative news cycles. The Epstein files controversy has been getting a lot of attention. Trump's legal problems keep mounting. Relations with his own party have been strained. So maybe Trump figured a surprise bipartisan meeting would change the narrative and get people talking about something other than his problems. That's vintage Trump. When you're facing bad press, create a bigger story that changes the conversation. And this definitely changed the conversation. Nobody's talking about anything else in political media right now. But there's also a possibility that Trump just did this on impulse without a grand strategic plan. Trump is known for making decisions based on gut instinct rather than careful calculation. Maybe he met Mamdani or talked to him on the phone and liked him personally. Maybe someone convinced Trump that Mamdani is actually pragmatic and easy to work with despite his progressive politics. Maybe Trump just decided it would be fun to blindside everyone by doing something completely unexpected. Trump has always enjoyed chaos and keeping people off balance. This certainly accomplished that. The reaction from Trump's base has been mixed. Some supporters are defending the move and saying it shows Trump is willing to work with anyone to get results. They're emphasizing the policy substance. If working with Mamdani helps bring down housing costs and improve public safety, who cares about party labels? But other supporters are furious. They see this as Trump selling out conservative principles by embracing a democratic socialist. They're angry that Trump praised someone who stands for everything they've been fighting against. And they're worried this signals Trump is moving to the left or abandoning his base to chase moderate voters. Conservative media has been scrambling to figure out how to cover this. Some outlets are trying to put a positive spin on it, framing it as Trump being the deal maker who can work with anyone. Others are openly critical, questioning why Trump is platforming a progressive Democrat and giving him legitimacy. And some are just confused and trying to figure out what Trump's endgame is. The lack of a coordinated message from Trump world shows how much this caught everyone off guard. Usually when Trump does something controversial, his allies quickly rally with talking points. But this time, nobody knew what to say because nobody knew this was coming. Democratic reactions have been interesting too. Some Democrats are suspicious, wondering if this is some kind of trap or political stunt. They're worried Trump is going to use this association with Mamdani to his advantage while not actually delivering on any promises to help New York. Other Democrats are cautiously optimistic that maybe Trump is genuinely willing to work on bipartisan solutions to affordability issues. And some Democrats are just amused watching Republicans freak out over Trump working with a progressive. The lack of a unified Democratic response reflects the fact that Democrats are as surprised by this as everyone else. Okay, let's break down what this actually means going forward, because Trump's surprise alliance with Mamdani has real implications for politics and policy. First, does this represent a genuine shift in Trump's approach, or is this a one-time stunt? That's the big question everyone's asking. If Trump actually follows through and works with Mamdani on housing and affordability issues, that would signal a real pivot toward bipartisanship and moderation. But if this was just a photo op and nothing substantive comes from it, then it was purely about optics and changing the news cycle. We won't know which it is for weeks or months until we see whether Trump actually delivers on the promises he made. Second, how does this affect Trump's relationship with the GOP? Republican leaders are already confused and frustrated by this move. If Trump keeps making surprise bipartisan overtures without consulting them, that's going to create serious tensions. Congressional Republicans have been fighting against progressive policies for years. Now their party leader is embracing a progressive mayor and promising to help implement those policies. That puts Republicans in an impossible position. Do they support Trump even when he's working with Democrats they oppose? Or Do they break with Trump and risk angering his base? Neither option is good. Third one, what does this mean for 2026 midterms? Trump is clearly thinking about elections. By positioning himself as someone who can work with Democrats on popular issues, he's trying to broaden his appeal beyond his base. That might help Republicans in swing districts who need to appeal to independent voters. But it might also depress turnout among conservative voters who feel betrayed by Trump working with progressives. The electoral impact is unclear and will depend on how this plays out over the next year. Fourth, does this embolden other Democrats to work with Trump? If Mamdani gets positive results from this relationship, if Trump actually delivers federal support that helps New York, other Democratic mayors and governors might be willing to work with Trump too. That could lead to more bipartisan cooperation on local issues, even while partisan warfare continues in Washington. But if Trump burns Mamdani or fails to deliver, other Democrats will be much more reluctant to trust Trump or give him photo op opportunities. Fifth, what happens to Trump's hardline supporters and allies? Some of Trump's most vocal supporters have built their brands on opposing progressives and fighting the radical left. If Trump is now working with the radical left, where does that leave them? Do they keep attacking Mamdani even though Trump is praising him? Do they dial back their criticism to stay aligned with Trump? Or do they break with Trump over this issue? We're already seeing some tension and confusion among conservative influencers who don't know how to square Trump's actions with the message they've been pushing. Now let's talk about what you should be watching for in the coming weeks and months. First, follow through. Does Trump actually deliver any federal support or resources to help Mamdani on housing and affordability? Or does this meeting fade away with no concrete results? The follow-through will tell you whether this was genuine or just theater. Second, Trump's rhetoric. Does he continue talking positively about Mamdani and bipartisan cooperation? Or does he quickly revert to his usual partisan attacks on Democrats? If this was a real pivot, Trump's language will change. If it was a stunt, he'll be back to normal within weeks. Third, GOP reactions. Watch whether Republican leaders try to distance themselves from this Trump-Mamdani alliance or whether they get on board with it. If Republicans start openly criticizing Trump's decision to work with Mamdani, that signals serious divisions in the party. Fourth, Mamdani's actions. Does he continue engaging with Trump or does he back away once he's back in New York? If Mamdani decides working with Trump isn't worth the political cost, this alliance will die quickly. Fifth, base turnout in polls. Watch whether Trump's approval ratings among conservatives drop after this announcement. If his base starts abandoning him over this, Trump will likely reverse course. Sixth, media narratives. Conservative media will either find a way to justify this move or they'll keep criticizing it. If Fox News and other major conservative outlets get on board with Trump's bipartisan approach, it might stick. If they keep attacking it, Trump might back off. The relationship between Trump and conservative media is complicated but important for understanding what Trump does politically. The deeper question this raises is about Trump's political identity and strategy. For years, Trump has been defined by partisan conflict and tribal politics. His appeal has been largely based on being a fighter who takes on Democrats and the establishment. But if he's now positioning himself as someone who can work across party lines, that's a different brand. It might appeal to a broader electorate, but it risks alienating the base that made Trump who he is. Trump has always been hard to categorize politically. He's shifted positions on many issues over his career. But this move raises questions about whether he's genuinely evolving or whether this is just tactical positioning that doesn't reflect any real change in his beliefs or approach. Here's my take on what this means. Trump is unpredictable. That's always been his defining characteristic politically. He does things that shock everyone and then moves on without feeling the need to explain himself. This Mamdani meeting is classic Trump in that sense. Sudden, unexpected, contradictory to his previous positions, and designed to dominate the news cycle. Whether it represents any real change in Trump's approach or whether it's just another Trump shock moment that we'll all forget about in 2 weeks remains to be seen. But what it definitely shows is that Trump isn't constrained by ideological consistency or loyalty to his allies. He'll do whatever he thinks serves his interest in the moment, regardless of who it confuses or upsets. So what's the bottom line? Trump shocked Washington by hosting progressive NYC Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani at the White House, praising his campaign and promising bipartisan cooperation on housing and affordability, despite having previously called Mamdani his worst nightmare. The surprise weekend announcement blindsided Trump's GOP allies and triggered confusion throughout the conservative movement. Trump offered no explanation for the reversal and showed no concern about the contradiction. The meeting focused on policy areas where Trump is trying to position himself as caring about working families. GOP reactions range from defensive justification to open criticism. The move might broaden Trump's appeal with independents, but risks alienating conservative supporters. Watch for follow-through on promises, Trump's continued rhetoric, GOP leader reactions, Mamdani's engagement, base polling, and media narratives. This could represent a genuine strategic pivot or just another unpredictable Trump moment that fades quickly. Either way, it shows Trump operates on his own terms without regard for consistency or traditional political constraints. The implications for 2026 and beyond depend on whether this is an isolated incident or the beginning of a pattern. Stay tuned, because with Trump, you never know what's coming next. And that's exactly how he likes it.